Just 2 minutes to 9:30 in the AM, the time allocated for the Senate plenary sitting on this 19th day, the month of November, the year 2025. This is the Senate proceedings streaming live from the Senate chambers, Parliament buildings in Nairobi. This is a broadcast that is brought to you live by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. A warm welcome to you, and we are glad that you're joining us this morning for these Senate proceedings. And being a Wednesday morning, the Senate will be hosting cabinet secretaries. This is pursuant to the standing orders, the provisions of standing order number 51C, where a cabinet secretary appears before the House to respond to concerns that the senators have forwarded to their ministries to be able to get comprehensive answers to various concerns, and the matters could be touching on county, inter-county, national, regional, or even international level. Currently, what you're seeing on your screens, these are the last final touches by the Senate clerk as well as the staff. The stand right ahead next to the speakers sitting, that is the stand that the cabinet secretaries, once they are ushered into the chamber, they will be taking their position and stand and be able to respond to the matters that were prior to their appearance this morning forwarded to the ministries for them to be able to do proper research and give a detailed report or a comprehensive answer to the matters that the members of the Senate have raised. And this morning, the cabinet secretaries that are expected or had been invited to appear before the Senate chambers on this Wednesday morning are 3 cabinet secretaries: the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Livestock Development, Mutahi Kagwe; the Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum, Opiyo Wandayi; as well as the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, Alice Wahome. If you're just joining us, that the House is about to sit for its plenary sitting on this Wednesday morning. That is inside the Senate chambers. Members are yet to make their way inside. The time allocated for the sitting is 9:30. It is now 9:31, so we believe that the members are not any far from the chambers, and in a short while we should be seeing them trickling into the chamber to get ready or even to prepare for that business that has been lined up for consideration this morning. We understand that the 3 cabinet secretaries have confirmed their appearance this morning, and once the House is ready to commence, then these cabinet secretaries will be ushered into the chamber, take their positions, and also be able to respond to the concerns that the members of the Senate had forwarded to these ministries. So the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Livestock Development, Mutahi Kagwe, once he appears before the chamber, or once he is ushered into the chamber and takes that stand, then he will be responding to matters around pyrethrum farming in Homa Bay County. This is a question that was sent to the ministry by the Honorable Senator for Kisumu County, Professor Tom Ojienda, and the senator will be requiring the cabinet secretary to provide a detailed current status of the pyrethrum farming in Homa Bay County. Also, the senator will be seeking to understand on the number of farmers that are currently engaged in that particular farming activity. Also, the total acreage of land that is currently under cultivation, as well as the production trends over the past 5 years. Some activities at the entrance of the Senate chambers that signals that the procession of the Speaker is just around, and that is the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Jeffa Kingi, who has made his way into the chamber. But you will notice that he is making his way into an empty chamber. There are barely any members. Allow me to hand you over to these proceedings.
Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, twakusihi tutazame kwa neema nyingi na baraka sisi watumishi wako ambao mridhika kutuita kwa nyadhifa za uongozi katika jamhuri hii yetu. Twakuomba tuwajalie tuyatende na kufikia mambo yote atakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Clerk, do you have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
The prayer has been said and the chair taken, but from the look on our screens, the House clearly is not about to correct. There are barely 3 members inside. The nominated Senator Esther Okenyuri has just walked in. We've also seen Senator Montet, and that is the entrance into the Senate chambers. So the Speaker has directed that the quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes. This is as provided for in the House Standing Order number 40, that at the commencement of the sitting of the Senate, if the quorum of the House has not been raised, then a 10-minute quorum bell shall be rung, or rather shall be on for the 10 minutes. This is to give room for the members of the Senate who may be within the precincts of Parliament but yet to make their way into the chambers to be able to hasten their steps and get into the chamber. And if that is not attained at the lapse of the first 10-minute quorum bell, a further 10-minute second round of the quorum bell shall be rung. But remember, the standing orders provide that if at the lapse of the second one, if there is no quorum, then the House stands adjourned until the next sitting. However, we understand that this morning, this is a day that has been allocated, rather a sitting that has been allocated for the members of the Senate to be engaging cabinet secretaries on various matters. These are issues or concerns that the senators normally forward to the ministries for the cabinet secretaries to be able to do further research or more research, and when they appear before them at the Senate chambers, they provide a comprehensive or a detailed report or answer to the particular questions or concerns that the senators may have forwarded to their ministries. So this day we understand that 3 cabinet secretaries have confirmed that they will be appearing or that they will be availing themselves to respond to these questions. However, we can see that the senators are not yet in the chambers. We hope that they will be able to raise that particular quorum because what it means is that if that quorum is not raised, then that business that has been lined up for consideration this morning will not be able to be transacted. A business that consists the invitation of the cabinet secretaries before the House to be able to respond to the concerns that the members forwarded to the ministries, and if the cabinet secretaries have confirmed their appearance, then that means if the senators failed to show up, that means that the cabinet secretaries will not be able to, or rather take the stand and respond to the questions. You will recall that there have been instances that the senators have not been so kind to the cabinet secretaries who failed to show up before the chamber of the senators at the invitation of the Senate. And this morning, perhaps the senators may not be looking to fail to show up at the Senate. So as the quorum bell is on, and as we hope that more senators will make their way into the chambers, then we shall continue to take a look at some of the questions that the CSs, once they take the stand, will be responding to. Earlier on, I had indicated to you that 3 cabinet secretaries have been invited and have confirmed that they will be availing themselves. And that is the Senator for Marsabit County, Honorable Mohamed Chute, who has made his way into the chamber. The Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Livestock Development, Mutahi Kagwe, will responding to matters around current status of pyrethrum farming in Homa Bay County. And this will include the number of farmers currently engaged in that particular farming, total acreage of land, as well as production trends over the past 5 years. Also, policy reforms that the government is considering to revitalize the pyrethrum sector in the Lake Region economic bloc and country generally. And also any measures that the government is doing to enhance access by farmers to certified pyrethrum plantlets and extension services. The Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum, Honorable Opio Wandai, this morning, once he takes the stand, will be responding to matters around rural electrification. This will entail the Cabinet Secretary will be required to provide a list of the rural electrification projects that have been initiated by the national government in Makueni County in 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2024-2025 financial years, and provide a status update on each. This is a question that will be coming from the Senator for Makueni County, Honorable Daniel Manzo, and a question regards rural electrification projects that the national government has so far initiated from the financial year 2022 to 2025. Also, the Senator will be seeking to understand from the Cabinet Secretary any steps that the Ministry of Energy has taken to accelerate the implementation of rural electrification projects in Makueni County and other counties where electricity access remains below 35%. A few more senators have walked in, including the Senator for Nairobi City County, who's also the whip from the minority side, Honorable Edwin Sifuna. I've just seen him counting the numbers or the number of members inside the chamber to see whether the quorum is about to be attained, but we can see him making his way out. This means that he is going to see if there are any members within the precincts to be able to whip them into the chamber to be able to join their colleagues who are already inside, and also enable the House attain that much needed quorum, or raise that much needed quorum for the business of the day to be able to take place. The Senate is about to commence its sitting, but there is a quorum hitch. The quorum hitch has necessitated the quorum bell to be on, or even a further delay of the business. Remember, this sitting of the Senate starts at 9:30. It is now 12 minutes past the time that has been allocated for the sitting to take place. Kitui Senator Honorable Enoch Kwambua also making his way into the chamber. We have just seen the Senator for Makueni County, Honorable Daniel Manzo, who this morning has a question for the Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum, also making his way into the chamber regarding the question that will be coming from the Senator for Makueni County on the rural electrification projects, specifically in Makueni County. The Senator will also want to understand any initiatives that the government is implementing to promote the adoption of solar power and other off-grid renewable energy solutions among residents of Makueni County and other arid and semi-arid areas. Just to remind you, is that these are the primary questions that the senators ask to the cabinet secretaries. However, there is a provision that the colleagues also have an opportunity to ask supplementary questions. However, these supplementary questions should be aligned to the primary questions. So regarding this issue on the rural electrification, much as the senator has posed this particular question or has just narrowed to Makueni County, there are other supplementary questions that the other senators, once they have an opportunity for supplementary questions, could also request for responses or an understanding on any concerns from other counties regarding the same issue, that is rural electrification. If you are just joining us, is that the House about to commence its sitting. There is a quorum hitch. The Speaker is all right. Let's listen in.
Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for further 10 minutes.
The first round of the quorum bell has lapsed. From the directive from the Speaker that a further 10-minute quorum bell be rung clearly indicates that the House has not quorated yet for the business to, or rather for the sitting to commence. So the Speaker has directed that the quorum bell be rung for a further 10 minutes, and this is as provided for in the House Standing Orders. But just to remind you is that once the second round of quorum bell lapses and there is a failure at, or rather of the House raising the quorum, then the House will stand adjourned until the next sitting. So we hope that more senators shall be able to make their way into the chamber. At this point, that is where the whips are required to whip the members, but that means only if the members are within the precincts of Parliament. We have just seen that the minority whip has walked into the chamber, but he was not accompanied by any other more members apart from so the earlier on we saw the Nairobi City County Senator Honorable Idris Sifuna walk back into the chamber, accompanied by Senator Consolata Nabuire. That would mean that more members are yet to get to the Parliament precincts, and we hope and believe that the members will be able to raise that quorum so that the cabinet secretaries who are already within the precincts of Parliament shall be able to be ushered in and respond to the concerns that the members had forwarded to the ministries and required responses. The Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum also will be responding to a question from the Senator for Tharaka Nithi County, Honorable Mwenda Gataya. This question will be around the frequent power outages affecting Tharaka University in Tharaka Nithi County and its environs. The Senator will be seeking to understand from the CS whether there are any measures that the government is taking to address that particular concern, and also whether the Cabinet Secretary could also outline the ministry's long-term plan to improve power supply infrastructure and ensure progressive realization of universal electricity connectivity in the specified area as well as across Tharaka Nithi County, and indicate the projected timelines for its implication. This is also a matter or a question that other members shall be able to weigh in on when it comes to supplementary questions, and I am sure they will be also seeking responses or wanting the Cabinet Secretary to expand on other areas across the country that are facing similar power or frequent power outages affecting businesses. Also, if the House manages to raise that quorum, the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, who's among the 3 Cabinet Secretaries that the Senate extended their invitation for them to appear before the Chamber this morning, will be responding to concerns. This is a question that will be asked by the Senator for Nairobi City County, Honorable Edwin Sifuna, and this matter regards the current holders of the title deeds for parcels of land within the county. The Senator will be requiring the Cabinet Secretary to disclose those current holders of a land in Kasarani constituency, which comprises 1,000 plots allocated to squatters in 1989 through a government squatter resettlement scheme, and also a land in Makadara constituency, which was designated for use by the Mbotela Charcoal Dealers Self-Help Group, as also as another land in Makadara constituency, which was designated for Buruburu Phase 5 Community Playing Ground. Around the same issue, the Senator will be seeking to understand from the Cabinet Secretary on any measures that the ministry is doing to safeguard the rights of the legitimate owners of these parcels of land, and to address the reported cases of fraudulent claims and encroachment in respect of the said parcels. I have just seen the Nairobi City County Senator indicating that perhaps there could be only a deficit of only 1 member. So that means there are about 14 inside, as provided for in the House Standing Order number 39. At least 15 senators are needed to be present in the chamber before the House or before the sitting of the Senate commences. That is what defines the quorum at the commencement of a sitting of the Senate. And if that is not present, then that will mean that the House cannot commence yet until and unless that particular quorum is raised. Senator Mwenda Gataya has walked in. That means that the quorum may have been raised, but of course we shall be waiting for the Speaker to indicate that, and we shall be handing this business back to the House for you to follow on the proceedings of this morning. The Senator for the County of Embu, Honorable Alexander Mundigi, also has a question for the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development. The quorum may have been achieved. I will be waiting for the Speaker to inform the House and call the House to order for the business to be able to commence. And once that is done, then the Cabinet Secretaries who are already within the precincts of Parliament shall be ushered into the chamber for them to be able to respond to the questions that the senators had earlier on forwarded to the ministries. Let's listen in.
Now, Honorable Senators, we do have quorum now, so we'll start the day's business. Clerk, you may call the first order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Now, Honorable Senators, we do have 3 CSs appearing before the Senate today for purposes of responding to 7 questions. Now that we are starting at 9:53, each question will be allocated 20 minutes so that we cover the 7 questions. We will start with question number 075, which is a question directed to the CS in charge of agriculture, and it is asked by the Senator for Kisumu County. Clerk, can you confirm that the CS agriculture is in the House? Honorable CS, welcome to the Senate once again. You are before us for purposes of responding to question number 075 by the Honorable Senator for Kisumu County, the Honorable Professor Tom Ojenda. Professor, you may now proceed to ask your question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, question number 75 is in 4 parts. Part A, could the Cabinet Secretary provide details on the current status of pyrethrum farming in Homa Bay County, including the number of farmers currently engaged in farming, the total acreage of land under cultivation and production trends over the past 5 years? 2, what policy reforms is the government considering to revitalize the pyrethrum sector in the Lake Region economic bloc and the country generally? C, what is the government doing to enhance access by farmers to certified pyrethrum plantlets and extension services? And D, could the Cabinet Secretary also provide details on the initiatives by the government to secure guaranteed foreign markets for local pyrethrum farmers and to enhance value addition and agro-processing generally? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And with your permission, Mr. Speaker, I also wish to record my appreciation for the invitation to come to the House, where I also served for 5 years. Mr. Speaker, in response to the Honorable Senator's question, Homa Bay County is not a pyrethrum growing zone, since the climatic conditions are not favorable for such. Homa Bay County is located within an altitude of 1,163 meters to 1,219 meters above sea level, with a rainfall of about 700 to 800 millimeters and an annual temperature of 17 to 34 degrees Celsius. These climatic conditions are not suitable for pyrethrum growing. This was also confirmed, by the way, by the Deputy Governor of Homa Bay County through the letter dated on the 28th of May 2025, which is annexed. In Kenya, for general information, Mr. Speaker, pyrethrum is grown in 19 counties within the highland regions of Kenya, comprising of the North Rift region, and those counties in the North Rift are Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet, West Pokot, Bungoma in Mount Elgon, Trans Nzoia, Uasin Gishu, and Nandi. In the South Rift region, we have got Nakuru, Kericho, Bomet, and Narok. In the Central Eastern region, there is also Laikipia, Nyandarua, Meru, Nyeri, Kiambu, and Embu. And in the Lake Region block, we have got Kisii and Nyamira. The reason why this is the case, Mr. Speaker, is because the suitable conditions within the highlands for growing of pyrethrum are essentially, number one, an altitude of about 1,700 meters to 3,000 meters above sea level. The best flowering is usually achieved in altitudes of above 2,130 meters above sea level. It also requires well-drained volcanic soils with a minimum pH of about 5.6 and an annual rainfall of a minimum of about 800 millimeters, well spread within the season. The temperatures below 18 degrees Celsius persist for at least 6 weeks to initiate flowering. High temperatures, water deficit conditions, and photoperiod effect flowering, flower development, and pyrethrin yields. In the second question, Mr. Speaker, in response to the second question regarding the revitalization of pyrethrum sector in the Lake region and economic bloc and in the country generally, let me inform the Honorable House that the government is pursuing several policy reforms and initiatives to revitalize the pyrethrum sector, both in the Lake region bloc as well as the other counties, particularly Kisii, Nyamira counties, where pyrethrum does well, and across the country generally. The reforms are geared towards boosting production, improving farmers' livelihoods, and addressing global market challenges. Specifically, on policy reforms, one is the distribution of high quality and clean planting materials. We have experienced in the past problems as far as seeds are concerned, and the government is focused on providing farmers with high quality, clean pyrethrum planting materials. Several stakeholders have distributed planting materials to pyrethrum farmers, and the planting materials, including the seedlings, distributed to West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet, Nyandarua, and Nakuru, which each received about 250,000 seedlings respectively, and Kericho some 50,000 seedlings. Mr. Speaker, it is also pertinent to us and clear that the government is encouraging the participation of private sector in the growing and processing of pyrethrum to make the subsector more competitive. And not just more competitive, is to create a market for the pyrethrum growing farmers. And already within the country, some of the partners are botanical extract. We have got a company called Kentagra, Biotechnology, and Africhem Technologies. These are investors in production and value addition of pyrethrum products. We have financial challenges within the sector. The government allocated some 105 million, which everybody will appreciate that that money is not enough for the pyrethrum processing company of Kenya. We have got a huge debt portfolio, which has fallen over many years, and therefore we can only use this money for the purchasing of seeds and propagation of planting of seedlings and provision of extension services to farmers. However, we will need your support in terms of getting adequate provisions to revive the industry. But I'm going also to make proposals as I explain, as I answer the question. The issue of addressing the historical issue of delayed payments to farmers is a critical policy reform. Agriculture and Food Authority regulates both private and government players to ensure prompt payments at competitive rates per kilo and based on pyrethrin content as an incentive to return to pyrethrum farming. Mr. Speaker, the reason why a lot of people stopped farming pyrethrum is because A, there was no market, and B, they were not being paid on time. The ministry, through the Pyrethrum Processing Company of Kenya Limited, pays the pyrethrum growers their produce on the basis of pyrethrin content. In an ideal situation, the practice is to advance growers an amount of money per every kilogram of dry flowers delivered to the factory, and the balance to be paid after the content analysis. But to be honest, this is not happening due to cash flow constraints that the company has. The advance is to cushion growers and enable them to manage the agronomic practices to enhance production per unit area. And just, Mr. Speaker, with the document that we have given a pricing, the pyrethrum producer price schedule, which is attached to my answer there. I don't know whether you want me to go through the whole...
No, it's not necessary.
The whole thing. But let me just highlight one thing, Mr. Speaker, to say that the highest rates that we have paid at the moment is actually in West Pokot at 525 shillings per kilo. And the reason why West Pokot is earning very high rates is because the pyrethrin content within the pyrethrum grown in West Pokot is actually the highest in the country at the moment. Mr. Speaker, we are also looking at liberalizing the pyrethrum sector by encouraging the private investors to join the value chain. You know, the aim here is at eliminating the monopoly previously held by the defunct Pyrethrum Board of Kenya and foster competition, which is expected to lead to better prices for farmers and stimulate growth. We also aim at reducing competition, unnecessary competition from imported pyrethrums. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that following demands from both this House and the National Assembly, we banned some 77 pesticide products and restricted over 200 others imported into the country. And this creates an opportunity for the pyrethrum industry to start replacing the pesticides that we have banned from outside the country with suitable organic pesticides, because pesticides are still necessary. But we can produce them organically using pyrethrum. So the pyrethrum-based pesticides will provide a good market for our pyrethrum farmers. Mr. Speaker, it is also important for us as a government, and we are encouraging the adoption of modern technologies like solar dryers for post-harvest management to reduce losses. And this has supported the counties with a total of 72 solar dryers. 64 were supplied by AFA in Nyandarua, Nakuru, Bomet, West Pokot counties, and 8 were also supplied by the pyrethrum processing company in Nyandarua County for demonstration purposes and adoption by farmers. On the third question, Mr. Speaker, that is alluding to the issue of what the government is doing to enhance access by farmers to certified pyrethrum plantlets and extension services, is that the government has been assisting farmers to access pyrethrum planting materials, besides provision of extension services in collaboration with other stakeholders. You will remember, Mr. Speaker, that agriculture is a devolved function, and consequently the extension officers are essentially managed by the counties. And we have got specialized extension officers who work with county extension officers so that they can advise the farmers. The idea is also to provide training facilities for the farmers within the processing company so that they can get the best crop husbandry that is available in the country. And on the planting materials, Mr. Speaker, the ministry, through the Pyrethrum Processing Company of Kenya, propagates clean planting materials in 2 areas, that is in Muguga and Molo tissue culture laboratories through tissue culture technologies. We also distribute clean materials. The Ministry of Agriculture has also distributed standard pyrethrum planting materials to farmers, as alluded to earlier. The issue of extension services is crucial, not just for the pyrethrum growing, but also for all other crops. And this is one of the issues that we have to work very closely with the county governments to provide extension officers. I think, Mr. Speaker, it is also important for us to say at this point that for a long time, the definition of an extension officer has been vague and undefined. And one of the efforts that we are putting forward is that this is a certification of extension officers. Those people qualified to be extension officers should be people who are certified by the Kenya Agricultural Colleges, so that they have got certificates that qualify them as extension officers. By so doing, we will make sure that there is a standard in the country for extension officers, including the ones for pyrethrum. And in the last question, Mr. Speaker, in the issue of the details, to provide the details on the initiatives by the government to secure guaranteed foreign markets, Mr. Speaker, I found several issues within the ministry and within this sector. And to be honest, Mr. Speaker, this has been a very challenging and sometimes frustrating area to deal with in terms of the foreign markets, even though we are exporting. And I will explain why I have said, I've made that statement. The draft crop pyrethrum regulations 2024 under development will provide a framework for the pyrethrum sector, including the requirements for nurseries, processors, and exporters. 2, Mr. Speaker, the pyrethrum products market is segmented, and let me explain this. The US market requires a generation of critical toxicology and efficacy data required by the US regulatory agency, i.e., the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. The Pyrethrum Processing Company of Kenya is a member of the Pyrethrum Joint Venture, a consortium that includes major stakeholders in the global pyrethrum industry. The government has put in efforts to renew its registrations to EPA. Mr. Speaker, this is important for me. That is a very pregnant statement in terms of our effort to renew, because it elapsed. The renewal, the registration lapsed in the US, and it takes quite some time and quite some money, that we will need in order for us to renew the EPA, registration within the EPA. And only after registration with the EPA, unfortunately for us, it is renewal, not new registration, because the new registration would almost take 2 years. So we are renewing that, and we are putting effort to do so. We have already got somebody, an agent, who is working on doing so. In the European Union, pyrethrum is regulated under the biocidal product regulation, and the registration is coordinated through the European Chemical Agency, what they call ECHA. Kenyan pyrethrum product has been trading in European markets through a network of distributors. Thirdly, the acquisition of international certification standards for quality products, where the pyrethrum processing company is aligning its processing standards to meet good manufacturing practice. That is known as the GMP. Secondly, ISO. Third, the good laboratory practices standards demanded by the global markets. In terms of enhancing value addition and agro-processing, the government, through the same institution, has invested significantly in agro-processing to enhance value addition to pyrethrum products. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that we have got a new plant in Nakuru, which unfortunately has never been commissioned as a result of lack of proper management and also lack of enough pyrethrum within the country. So these efforts have led to the registration and commercialization of 7 pyrethrum-based products targeting pests in animal health, public health, agriculture, commercial, and industrial sectors. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the government has introduced agro-processing zones where pyrethrum processors can access affordable industrial spaces to process pyrethrum-based products. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Senator for Kisumu County, do you have any supplementary questions?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just one question. The Honorable CS for Agriculture, at page 4, you have indicated the allocation to pyrethrum of Kenya shillings 105 million in the financial year 2024-2025. Are there any earnings? Could the Minister clarify whether there are earnings from pyrethrum, if any?
Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, just take a couple of questions.
Okay,
then you
okay,
can
thank
respond to them at once.
No, Mr. Speaker, I was shocked. I thought we have another Senator Wambua here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the CS has admitted in many words that since the disbandment of the Pyrethrum Board of Kenya in the year 2013, the crop has walked a very painful journey towards being an orphaned cash crop. The Speaker, he has also admitted that there is global demand for natural insecticides, and pyrethrum would really fit that bill. So, Speaker, I want to know what percentage of the ministry budget has been allocated to research and development of the pyrethrum subsector in view of the demands of the global market for the crop. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mbugua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bwana Cabinet Secretary, in the year 2021, the Cabinet then approved the sale of assets of Pyrethrum Board of Kenya to settle debts owed to pyrethrum farmers. Would you tell this House the specific assets which were sold, how much was raised, and how much is being owed to pyrethrum farmers at the moment? Thank you.
Senator Maanzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, bearing in mind that the world now is going organic, and organic insecticides are very popular and on demand in the world now, what programs does the Cabinet Secretary have for the future so that we may capture this market and make sure that pyrethrum is back on track, no more debts, and we are able to make profits worldwide? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Eddie Okech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Waziri has indicated that Homa Bay has got no good climatic conditions for growing pyrethrum. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to know from Waziri, is there a policy position to that effect? Because the national government is charged with making policy on some of these devolved government functions. Is there that policy that has been established to that effect, and has that policy been communicated to counties? Because the purpose for that question is, we have seen Homa Bay County budget lines having pyrethrum as a cornerstone for agriculture in that area. Even in Migori County, there has been indication for growing pyrethrum. Could there be a possibility that there is a conduit of loss of money by our counties if there is no policy position? So is there a policy position that has been communicated to counties with regard to that answer, Mr. Speaker?
Honorable CS, you have 4 minutes to respond to those supplementary questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the earnings, that there are some earnings that we do get from selling the products that the company has been making. But given the budgetary requirements, this is not enough. The company has been earning about 35 million shillings per year. You know, at best, it came to about 60 million shillings per year. And let me also say that there is no money that has been allocated for research. So all this, which is a very critical area for us. And it is not that we have not proposed the research budget. It is only that at the end of the budget process, we find ourselves with not just no money for research, but not enough money even to sustain the organization itself. So, and this is why I was quite candid and honest about it. But I want to, perhaps if I answer in a broader way, I'll cover some of the questions together. Mr. Speaker, the only way, in our view, in terms of policy structure, that we have a future within the pyrethrum sector is to involve the private sector. And the way that we propose is there is a CAB memo at the moment, which I have done, and we are working with Treasury on this one, to see whether we can go into leasing of the pyrethrum processing company of Kenya. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, this idea came from the employees themselves who actually sent a memo to me to ask me whether this is possible, and I agree that this is the way forward. If you look at the privately licensed or the private organizations in the country, they are managing to survive. And therefore, what we should also do, just like we have done with other industries in tea, in cotton, in sugar, is to license private sector so that they can do so, obviously in a transparent and very clear manner. Mr. Speaker, let me just for a little bit also address the issue of the debts and the assets of the organization. Mr. Speaker, farmers themselves are owed only about 10 million shillings, which is essentially the payments from August, November, August, September, and October, which we have not managed to pay, but which we are going to pay. But that's not the main beef. The main challenge, Mr. Speaker, is that the debt portfolio of the organization, and that also comes back to the question that was asked about what we are doing about the debt. The debt portfolio of the organization is some 3.5 billion. And this debt is essentially in suppliers and staff pension. We have tried as much as possible to keep on paying the farmers, but there is a debt portfolio of about 3.5 billion. There was the proposal, as a senator has rightly said, that assets should be sold in order to cover this debt. And it is true that the organization also has an asset portfolio of about 6 billion shillings. So it is possible for us to cover the debt once we sell. But the process of doing so hit a problem at some point. And then the movement from the original company to this organization, the transition period, the valuation of those assets, and so on and so forth, delayed everything about the sale of the assets. So to date, we have not sold any of the assets. And of course, once the cabinet agrees that we license the organization, we will need to go through the entire valuation of the assets again. So because the valuation that we have is a valuation that was done at that time. So, Mr. Speaker, the idea of settling the debts via the sale of some of the assets is still what we intend to do, because there is no other way. And indeed, for us to make it viable for licensing, it is necessary that we settle the debts. Nobody in their right minds, no businessman, is going to come up and say that they want an organization that is in the red to the tune of 3.5 billion. So we need to clean up our balance sheet as we move forward towards the licensing regime. On Homa Bay, the guiding principle on in terms of where to plant what is essentially the weather and climate conditions that I said, that I alluded to when I said when I answered the first part of Senator Ojienda's question. This is what guides the policy framework. You cannot decide that you want pyrethrum to grow pyrethrum in an area where the climatic conditions do not do so. There are some spots. There are some spots within Homa Bay, some hilly spots that there is experimenting going on to see whether indeed it is possible to grow pyrethrum there. But largely, this is not going to be a big crop in the Homa Bay area simply because of the climatic conditions. There are other crops like palm oil that are very, very suitable, you know, for Homa Bay. And indeed, we are in engagements with the county government regarding how we can support the production of palm oil, which perhaps will be the premier crop in that county in the future. Mr. Speaker, I think I have addressed all the questions that were asked. I submit.
Thank you so much, Honorable CS. We will terminate our interaction with the CS at that juncture. We will therefore allow the CS to leave at his own pleasure. We will now move to question number 105. Clerk, you may usher in the CS in charge of energy. Honorable Senators, let me take this opportunity to welcome the CS in charge of energy and petroleum to the Senate. Now, Honorable CS, you are before the Senate for purposes of responding to question number 105 and 123. Now, Honorable Senators, these two questions will be allocated 40 minutes, meaning 20 minutes per question. And therefore, we will start with question number 105 and terminate at 10:44. And thereafter, we'll proceed to question number 123 to terminate at 11:05. I will therefore call upon the Senator from Makueni County to proceed and ask question number 105.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of the rural electrification projects initiated by the national government in Makueni County in the years 2022, 2023, 2023, 2024, and 2024-2025 financial years, and provide a status update on each? B, what steps has the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum taken to accelerate the implementation of the rural electrification projects in Makueni County and other counties where electricity access remains below 35%? C, what initiatives in the government implementing to promote the adoption of solar power and other off-grid renewable energy solutions among residents of Makueni County and other arid and semi-arid areas? Finally, Mr. Speaker, D, could the Cabinet Secretary also outline the government's plan to harness solar and wind energy for electrification generation and integration into the national grid, particularly in Makueni County and other arid and semi-arid areas? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may proceed to respond.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Speaker. I wish to respond or to answer the question number 105, and to put it in context, Honorable Speaker, the national government, under the guidance and leadership of His Excellency President William Ruto, is implementing a robust and elaborate program to extend electricity to every corner of this country, without exception, as I will demonstrate shortly. As a matter of fact, Honorable Speaker, from August 2022 to now, more than 1.2 million additional households countrywide have been connected to electricity. Makueni, of course, being part of that package. Honorable Speaker, during the financial years 2023, 2022-23, 23-24, and 24-25. The government has been able to allocate some Kenya shillings 2.03 billion for Makueni County under the last mile electricity projects, targeting some 18,320 households. A total cost of Kenya shillings 882,581,888 has been committed through REREC for implementation of some 139 projects. The list of these projects, Honorable Speaker, is provided under Annex 1, showing both the approved budgets and their current implementation status. There was a further 4 projects whose survey and design phases were completed and had been earmarked for implementation, but owing to resource constraints, could not be implemented as scheduled and were therefore deferred to the financial year 25-26. Honorable Speaker, Annexes 2, 3, 4, and 5 provide the details of the projects that have been implemented and those that are planned in Makueni County, including their constituencies and design status. Part B, the government of Kenya, as I've said, through the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, continues to implement various programs aimed at accelerating electricity access in counties where connectivity remains low, including Makueni County. To address funding constraints and expand rural electrification coverage, the government is pursuing additional financing from development partners to scale up ongoing initiatives under the last mile connectivity project and other complementary programs. In particular, the African Development Bank financed last mile connectivity project phase 3, which is currently under procurement, targets some 35 counties across the country, focusing on areas with low connection levels. Under this program, Honorable Speaker, Makueni County has been allocated approximately Kenya shillings 185 million, which will facilitate the construction of new low voltage distribution networks and transformer installations to connect hundreds of households. The ministry is also working closely with the Kenya Power and REREC to optimize available resources, rationalize existing infrastructure, and implement grid intensification and extension works to ensure equitable access across all counties. Honorable Speaker, the table that follows, of course, shows the summary of the last mile connectivity projects in Makueni County, with the amounts and the respective number of households. Part C, Honorable Speaker. The government of Kenya, through the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, in collaboration with development partners such as the World Bank, is implementing several initiatives to promote the adoption of solar and other off-grid renewable energy solutions among residents in arid and semi-arid regions. One of the flagship programs under this effort, Honorable Speaker, is the Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Project, famously referred to as COSAP, which seeks to expand access to modern energy services in areas that are not viable for grid extension in the short term at a cost of US $150 million. The project targets 14 undeserved counties, as I've said. And these counties are Garissa, Isiolo, Kilifi, Kwale, Lamu, Mandera, Marsabit, Samburu, Tana River, Turkana, Wajir, West Pokot, Narok, and Taita Taveta. The objective of COSAP is to provide renewable energy access to approximately 37,107 households and 343 public facilities, including schools, health centers, and administrative offices, through solar mini-grids, standalone solar systems, and clean cooking solutions. Although, Honorable Speaker, Makueni County is not among the 14 counties targeted under the initial COSAP phase, the government continues to explore the expansion of similar off-grid renewable energy interventions to other counties with low access levels. In parallel, REREC is also implementing standalone solar systems and mini-grid projects across non-grid areas, complementing national electrification efforts. These initiatives collectively contribute to the realization of universal electricity access by the year 2030, as outlined in the Kenya National Electrification Strategy. Part D, Honorable Speaker, the aim of the ministry is to diversify the country's energy mix to ensure that we meet the rising demand for electricity. The current energy mix, Honorable Speaker, is as contained in the table that follows. I note, Honorable Speaker, that there are future possibilities based on the available information to tap into available renewable energy resources, in particular solar and wind, which I note is available in Makueni and various other areas in the country. And the ministry is in the process of exploiting the same. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the ministry is transitioning to renewable energy auctions that will encourage the private sector to invest more into solar and wind resources and sell their power at competitive prices. These initiatives will ensure that we harness more power from solar and wind and diversify our energy mix. Honorable Speaker, let me hasten to add that finally the National Assembly, which is part of this parliament, has lifted the moratorium that was imposed by the same house some time back. And therefore, as a ministry and our respective implementing agency, that is Kenya Power, we are now more than free to engage in negotiations with the prospective independent power producers. This will go a long way in addressing the shortfall and indeed to attract more investments locally and foreign. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Manzo, do you have any supplementary questions?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Cabinet Secretary for the effort he has made, and he has clearly indicated that Makueni County doesn't have a budget on part of the solar powering. Recently, Mr. Speaker, the President, while in Qatar, talked about power rationing, and I believe this was with the advice of the Cabinet Secretary. Could he highlight, and when this power rationing happens, when will the people of Makueni be in a blackout so that we can plan ourselves much earlier, Mr. Speaker?
Honorable CS, just wait for a couple of questions, then you can respond to them at once. The Senator for Nairobi City County, Senator Edwin Sifuna.
Honorable Speaker, as you know, I am a member of the Energy Committee of this House. This morning, we woke up to news that Kenya Power owes 30 billion Kenya shillings out of this same program of rural electrification because the government is pushing power to people who cannot actually sustain that power in terms of paying back the power bills. We see it as a photo obsession for the CS of Energy to go into some hut. You can see the economic situation of that house, Honorable Speaker, when the CS is going to switch on that light. Now, my question is this, and Speaker, in fact, the National Assembly, our sister committee in the National Assembly, is now recommending that in order for Kenya Power to pay back that 30 billion shillings, those of us, again, the working middle class in this country, who can afford to pay, the electricity cost be raised from July of 2026 in order to raise this 30 billion Kenya shillings to repay this debt. So the question to the Cabinet Secretary, and Honorable Speaker, we were in Kilifi County, where the Speaker comes from. The other complaint, and I'm sure you have interacted with this issue, Honorable Speaker, is that you find somebody has been connected to power, yes, but the power is so unreliable and so low voltage, it cannot power a portion mill for that hustler down there to be able to actually run the business. So the question to the Cabinet Secretary, as you push this power to these people, what plans have you as a government put in place to ensure that the people you are connecting that power to, after they get the infrastructure, are in an economic situation where they can actually pay their power bills? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Abbas Sheikh.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First and foremost, I want to thank the Minister for coming and the good work they're doing. However, I know every part of this country, people are crying for power. Honorable Minister, I think I want to talk about my county. Wajir County has been experiencing power blackout and power inefficiency supply for many, many years. Subsequent governments have always been saying that will be connected to the grid, national grid, that there is 5 megawatts of hybrid solar system. But of course, up to now, we experience same problems. That you have, your ministry has leased, our power has leased, Kenya Power has leased some generators from a private company called Income. But those guys are very inefficient. Income is not actually giving sufficient supply to Wajir. Wajir is experiencing actual blackout every day, one day out, day in. And therefore, I want to ask a question is that when are you going to connect, when will the Kenya Power, the ministry connect to Wajir, to the national grid, because Wajir is growing, and then there's so many off-grid lines that have been taken from the town, the main town, and then being taken to the rural areas. That's okay, that's in order. But of course, the power is not enough. So, because of that many connections, the main town...
Senator Abbas,
yes, sir.
Just pause your question.
Okay. The problem is we're now experiencing, terrible inefficient, the power blackouts. When are we going to have the promised 5 megawatts hybrid system, hybrid power from solars? And what are you going to do, the government doing, the ministry doing to connect Wajir to the national grid? Thank you, Banawziri.
Now, honorable senators, let us avoid speeches. Let's go direct to the question. Senator Catherine Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to ask a question. Honorable CS, welcome to the Senate, and thank you for your response on Makueni. My question is whether the ministry has a program around the national government partnership with county governments to ensure operationalization of the industrial parks. How much has the ministry supported the provision of energy resources around the county industrial parks, and how equitable is that process?
Senator Mbugo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Cabinet Secretary, in page 2 of your response, you talked about the last mile connectivity project phase 2. Could you tell this House how much that financing is, and also name the 32 counties which are supposed to benefit? Thank you.
Senator Chiranke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is in Nandi, we normally have regular blackouts that is affecting our business as farmers, especially preservation of milk, among other produce and products. What strategy does the ministry have to ensure, as they do last mile electricity to rural homes, have in place to prevent regular blackouts that is affecting the ease of doing business? And in addition, because it's one question, how much has been allocated to Nandi County to ensure in this financial year for rural electrification to many areas in Nandi County? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Consolata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the opportunity. Bwana CS, thank you very much for your presentation. My question is based on what mechanisms of sustainability have you put in place to maintain and sustain these gadgets? Because you find that even down at the grassroots where I come from, Bungoma County, most mama mbogas are suffering because of regular power outages. Thank you.
Senator Mandago.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I just want to ask the Cabinet Secretary, what is he doing to ensure that the cost of the projects they are procuring, particularly in Kentraco, are the actual market costs and not inflated costs? And what are you going to do to resolve the matter that has been hanging around between the court and Kenya Power about the meters that is affecting the connections of rural projects? What are you going to do to address the conflict of interest in those who are involved in that matter? Thank you very much.
Now, Honorable CS, you may proceed to respond. You have 5 minutes to do so. 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Yes, as I had said earlier on, Honorable Speaker, we continue to support initiatives to generate more power, especially from the renewable energy sources, that is, of course, including solar and wind power. And it must also be pointed out, Honorable Speaker, that investment in power generation is invariably by the private sector. Yeah, and therefore, the private sector, upon its evaluation and based on clear feasibility study, then makes a decision with the support of the government to implement these projects. And therefore, Makueni County is definitely a candidate for such projects in the fullness of time. Honorable Speaker, the 30 or so billion shillings owed to Kenya Power is not on account of non-payment of bills. This is basically money that is owed to Kenya Power by REREC for the purpose of for maintenance of lines. And it's something which we are dealing with internally as a sector, Honorable Speaker, and the ministry. And Honorable Speaker, it is not true that the households that we connect to electricity, that majority of them fail to pay bills. We don't have that evidence, Honorable Speaker. Many a time when we go out there to commission and or launch these projects, it is really as a way of rallying the public and sensitizing them on what the government is doing for them insofar as extending electricity is concerned. And if there's any default in electricity bill payment, it can only be as a matter of, it can only be out of individual cases where somebody, of course, can fail to pay bills for one reason or the other, not because of the fact that we are extending these services to those who are unable to. Honorable Speaker, plans for consistent, reliable, and uninterrupted supply of electricity. It is important to point out that we are not just implementing these last mile connectivity projects or programs in isolation. We are looking at this in a holistic manner. As I mentioned, starts with generation, which thankfully we are now able to progress as a result of the lifting of the moratorium. But after we generate, we are also concurrently dealing with the issue of infrastructure for both transmission and distribution. And we've invested heavily as government and also with support of partners. Yes, through REREC, through Kenya Power, and through KETRACO. And of course, finally, Honorable Speaker, is the last mile. And therefore, you must look at all this in totality. And all these contribute eventually to a supply which is reliable, consistent, uninterrupted, and more importantly, cost-effective. Honorable Speaker, Wajir County, we have been in touch with the leadership of Wajir County and working very closely with them. We know there have been challenges, especially Wajir Town, as a result of a breakdown in one or two generators that supply that town. I have personally been in touch with the Governor Ahmed Abdullahi and my good friend, the Honorable Member for Wajir East, Honorable Daudi. And we have worked very closely, and I'm happy to report that the restoration of power to normalcy in Wajir town and environs is almost complete. But more importantly, Honorable Speaker, we have got in plans a robust and what I would say transformative project that is going to ensure that we have got a hybrid system in Wajir town, okay? A hybrid system, Honorable Speaker, that will supply some 6 megawatts of electricity to Wajir town and environs, which is comprising of a solar PV and a battery storage system, to the tune of almost 2.8 billion shillings. Almost 2.8 billion shillings. This is a project that we are keen as a ministry to implement successfully, and we are hopeful that come sometime November, December next year, this project will be complete and commissioned. And this is going to address in totality and with finality the issue of power in Wajir town and environs, and indeed, many parts of Wajir County. I must thank the leadership of Wajir County for working very closely with us as a ministry. Honorable Speaker, as a ministry and through our relevant agencies, we continue to support county governments on a case-by-case basis. These county industrial parks, you know, there are different stages of implementation or development. And therefore, if and when they get completed, we come in very, very fast and support them through Kenya Power. We intend to continue in that trajectory. Honorable Speaker, the AFDB funding, phase 3, okay, that we are just about to implement in some 35 counties, is going to cost some 12 billion shillings. And this project is going to create a very, very big positive impact in terms of our electrification coverage. Honorable Speaker, blackouts in Nandi County must be looked at in the context of the national outlook. Honorable Speaker, I'm very happy to report, and this is something which is evident, that for some time now, we have almost reduced to 0 cases of national blackouts. I'm sure honorable members and honorable Speaker, and members will agree with me that it's long since we had an episode of national blackout. But for the localized blackouts, if and when they occur, we have put in place elaborate systems and mechanisms to ensure that the response time is as short as possible, and that electricity is restored the soonest possible once these blackouts occur. But these localized blackouts, Honorable Speaker, can be attributed to very many factors, but chief of which is the vegetative growth, the trees that sprout and grow along the way leaves. We have worked closely with Kenya Power, and in the past few months, a lot of efforts have been put in terms of cutting down these trees, and this has reduced significantly the number of blackouts. And where the localized blackout is as a result of constraint in the supply, of course, I've said we are implementing a very comprehensive project to ensure that we have got adequate supply in the grid going forward. And this, of course, deals with the issue of Bungoma County and many other places. Honorable Speaker, the question by Honorable Senator Mandago, of course, it's not specific in terms of the cost of procurement by Traco, but I must report to the House, Honorable Speaker, that as a ministry and working closely with our entities, we want to ensure and strive to ensure that there is cost, this value, in every procurement project, Honorable Speaker. There is no problem so far on the matter of meters procurement by Kenya Power. Any small hitches that were there have been resolved, and Kenya Power is on course to have these meters in stores for use by Kenyans, Honorable Speaker. Thank you. Nandi County, of course, has been allocated.
You've responded to Nandi County.
That's been allocated 1.349 billion shillings, which is under implementation. And this is going to connect some 19,000 households, additional, Honorable Speaker, in Nandi County. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable CS. We will now move to question number 123 by Senator for Tharaka Nithi County, the Honorable Mwenda Gataya. Now, this question will take us to 11:14. Honorable Senator, you may proceed to ask your question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you. Honorable Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, I would request to know from the Honorable Waziri what specific measures is the government taking to address the frequent power outages affecting Tharaka University in Tharaka Nithi County and its environs. But to Honorable Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary also outline the Ministry's long-term plan to improve power supply infrastructure and ensure progressive realization of universal electricity connectivity in the specified area, as well as across Tharaka Nithi County, and indicate the projected timeline for its implementation? Thank you.
Honorable CS, you may now respond.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I proceed to answer question 123. And I'm also, Speaker, from the outset happy to report that I have had a chance to visit Tharaka Nithi County. Specifically in July, I was in Tharaka constituency and did extensive tour to inspect the ongoing works in so far as electrification